Okay, we'll call the Planning Commission meeting to order. This is the Planning Commission dated January 18th. The first order of business is review the meeting minutes from December 7th, 2022, which seems like a long time ago. Any changes or updates? Otherwise, a motion?
Motion to approve.
Motion by Scott, support by Terry. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. The next item on the agenda is the general public comment. This is provided so the public can comment on anything that's not on the agenda tonight. So if there's anybody in the audience that would like to comment on anything that is not on the agenda tonight, please approach the podium, state your name for an address. Seeing that there is none, we will move on. Case number 22-039, public hearing, amendment to an approved final area site plan for a PUD benefit to allow a 4-story building with a height limit of 52 feet, the U-Haul interior access self-storage building, and she moved it so I can't finish reading it. Okay, self-storage building, Amerco Real Estate Company. Paula, would you care to update us on the amendment?
I'd be happy to, thank you. This case may sound familiar. It was before you relatively recently, just before I started. In fact, back in November, the final area site plan for this project was approved. It is a interior access self-storage building from U-Haul. It is in the Avistar Park CPUD, and as part of that project that was approved, was granted a PUD benefit to be taller than is standard in the commercial areas at a height of 42 feet, 3 stories. And the applicant has come back with this, what you see before you today, requesting to increase the PUD benefit to allow a 4-story building with a height of 52 feet. As you can see here, the site is on Alpine, but access is also from the interior road network in the PUD. The zoning ordinance doesn't have a lot of direction for approval standards for something of this nature. It basically says, as you would approve any other site plan, approve this, an amendment to a final area site plan. And in the PUD here, it's kind of at Planning Commission discretion. So staff prepared a few questions for the board to consider in terms of whether or not the amendment meets standards for approval. Questions such as, is this a reasonable request for a PUD benefit? Will the increased mass and height of the building impact adjacent parcels positively, negatively, not at all? How will the increased height impact usage of the site or impact traffic to and within the site? And finally, are there any other aspects of the site plan that may need to be adjusted to account for an increase in height and density within the building? The fire department was consulted. They stated that they are okay with the proposed changes. They have apparatus access and water supply available for the increased height of the building in that area. It's the staff recommendation that this meets the standards for approval, and I'm happy to answer any questions the board may have.
Thank you, Paula. Any questions for Paula?
I'm obviously not an engineer, but you're measuring it by height in feet. And they talk about stories too. Is there a standard height for each story? Or is that, what, 4 stories, what would that mean? It'd be 10 foot a story, or how does that go?
I'm also not an engineer or an architect. These were the dimensions they gave. I believe that's pretty standard. 35 feet and 2.5 stories is this kind of height limit generally for commercial buildings in the city, but it can increase, and I believe the applicant might be able to speak more about how they would utilize the different, the increased height, or what the levels of the different stories would be.
Okay.
Any other questions for Paula? Mr. Connors?
You have a report from me, but I'm not sure I should go through it. When I was talking to Frank, he made it pretty clear that The direction to the planning commission tonight is to not look back at the site plan. And so all of my comments are related to the site plan and the fact that there's still a lot of open-ended issues. So if you're here just to discuss the extra height, I'll kind of help with historical perspective if I can, answering questions, but I'm just here to support Paula.
The reason this is before the planning commission is because it was a final area site plan from, with a PUD, because why didn't it go to the ZBA?
I never thought about it from that perspective. As a PUD, they can be granted more flexibility. They were already granted additional height to the 3 stories, and they came back to ask for an additional height allowance. It fits within the PUD standards, and it's a little bit of a faster process, I think, than going to the ZBA might be part of it. Again, that might be a
Okay.
good question for the applicant.
Sorry, I can chime in. I think that we would view this as a review of a PUD benefit, which falls under our purview, as opposed to a variance to the site, which would fall under the ZBA.
Okay. I remember, what year was the fire barn in Standale built, Scott, do you remember? They had to actually come, they came before this, it was one of my first meetings in the ZBA, they came before the city of Walker came before the ZBA to get a variance for their height, because that's the tallest building in Standale.
2003, because we're about to pay off the bonds.
Something like that. Any more other questions for Scott or Paula? Is the applicant, please approach the podium and hit the button so that the red light comes on and give us an update.
Good evening. My name is Jonathan Gilmore. I am the president of U-Haul of Northern Michigan. I was before you guys a couple of months ago when we first discussed this. So what's happened subsequent to this is working with our engineers on the site, the water table, if you recall, this was always going to be 4 stories, but it was going to be 1 underground and 3 above. The water table here is at such a degree that that's not financially possible. You're sitting at too high of a water table to put in a subfloor or basement without having to spend millions of dollars to secure that. So what we've come up with is, rather than having 4 stories with 1 underground, is just raising it up so the below ground is gone on this. So that would just be support, pylons into the ground to support the building, that kind of thing, no longer a basement. So it adds no density, it adds no more rooms, everything virtually the same in terms of the amount of space for the building, just 1 story above. And the 52 feet request is, each floor is about 10 feet, but depending on the size of a building, you have to have a pitch to the roof. So the height has to equal the top of the pitch. So the floors are 10 feet, first floor is 12, every subsequent floor is 10. And then you have to have a certain pitch on a roof this high in order to have water retention correct on the building. So that's why we're requesting 52 feet. That's the height that the pitch has to be at for a building of this size. So with 4 stories.
Okay, any questions for the applicant?
I can just quickly, I do, Scott, to your comments in the letter, the renderings that we got were a little bit confusing to me just because the layout doesn't seem to match some of the design features of the site. So I don't know if you want to address that or.
So this rendering reflects our original concept. So we're trying to kind of get this done in something of a hurry. The ownership, we've kind of, they've passed the ball down a number of times, and unfortunately we have not had a chance to update the rendering. This gives you our design features though. So the subsequent site will appear very similar to this within the scope of what the site plan will allow depending on the building, but it will look incredibly similar to this. Stylistically, everything will be very similar.
Got it. Appreciate that. I just wanted to clarify because, yeah, when I saw it, it did seem like there were features that weren't matching up to what we had.
It's just trying to get everything done, and the ownership's been very good to us,
Yep.
kind of allowing us as much time as possible, but I think he's getting a little itchy.
Nope, totally understand.
I think there was a condition last time about the orange doors and how we would treat that, because we were a little concerned that they looked exactly like doors. I know that was an architectural feature for you.
I don't believe there was any requirement put on us with that last time we were here. Now, I could be mistaken, but as I recall, we spoke on that at length in terms of that not being doors. Those are actually just steel attached to the side of the building. So I think that other than just going on the sides, I think that was the only thing, is it wouldn't reflect on the sides of the building, which might have been the only requirement that was put on us. I don't believe anything needed to be adjusted on the front. Again, if I'm speaking out of turn though on that, if there was something in there, we will certainly adhere to it.
Well, there were a lot of requirements in my report, so.
For sure.
Definitely more than 0. So those will have to be addressed.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and the conditions of final site area plan approval, it talks about doors and the original final area site plan approval. Any other questions for the applicant? This is a public hearing, so if I can get a motion to open the public hearing.
So moved.
Motion by Steve, supported by Joe. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The public hearing is open. If you would like to address this case, please approach the podium, state your name and address for the record.
Red light's on already.
Yep.
Hi, I'm Robert Flannery. I live at 825 Cogswell, which is directly west of where they would propose to build the building, 1 block west, right behind the Orion Glass building. I guess this is the first I heard it was going to be 4 stories above ground. But my problem is with the aesthetics of the building, and already there's no other buildings in that area that are 2.5 stories within, a mile on Alpine. I don't feel that we should be able to grant the variance, and because it's gonna affect the neighborhood with the sun coming up, and when the sun sets, the glare coming off of the, looks like the windows that they're gonna have there, and the type of the building they're gonna have. There's already some there's already some glare off of the Lear building, or the old Lear building, I should say, so. That was my concern over this, because I think that's what the meeting, excuse me, was tonight. Sorry, I have a thyroid problem, so.
Okay, thank you.
And then.
Anything else?
Just one last thing is the traffic going in there. I feel that Alpine should be, more properly labeled than what it is now, because of trying to turn on to my street, which is Cogswell, when you're going northbound. You get, cars come into that before the light, and then there's almost head-on collisions, so that was,
Yeah, I
that's
travel,
the only thing that I want.
travel it quite often. I know what you mean.
Yeah, and then people going into the Big B drive-in the opposite way than what they're supposed to, just concerns like that, just more safety for the neighborhood.
Okay, appreciate it. Thank you.
I appreciate it.
Any other comments? Can I entertain a motion to close the public hearing?
Motion to close the public hearing.
Do I have support?
Second.
Motion by Pat, supported by Scott. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The public hearing is closed. Comments from the planning commission?
I just wondered where his building was in relationship to this building. I didn't quite understand that.
Is it due west?
Directly west, right
Directly due west across the street.
Yeah, so right across Alpine there.
behind the tire company and the Round Glass.
Is it on here?
It's outlined in blue right there. Right on the border there, Cogswell and, but it's like it's outlined in blue right here.
Okay, any other comments, Joe, or? Dave?
If you could just clarify a little bit about how this is gonna negatively affect your property there.
With the sun that comes up, I granted the Lear building is a taller building, but it's
Yeah.
way back. This will be a 4-story building right next to Alpine, and there's no other, they're all 1-story strip malls, or, the new gas station. And it'll affect, when the sun comes
Yes, sure.
So, within the design features of what we do for these buildings, the windows are non-reflective. We go with the most crystal clear glass on these, and they are back set with lighting in order to eliminate or reduce any reduction so you can actually see through these windows in and out at all times. So reflection on these windows is incredibly minimal. We have the lowest reflective quality of the windows. There is no tint to them at all. So these windows specifically, we go after them. There's a classification for them, I can't quite remember exactly what it is, but minimal reflective, we want people to be able to see in and out of them at all times. So it should be very minimal reflective off of those, the windows.
That was one of the reasons I asked for renderings. It's just to try to see, and, looking at the Avistar Park, that's 4 or 5 story building, but it's way back off the road. Terry, any comments?
No comment.
Steve?
I would just say generally that I feel pretty comfortable with where we're at with the proposal. I live in the neighborhood as well, and I think that I don't suspect that this will be any more nuisance than large debilitated parking lot with many semi-trailers.
Pat?
Yeah, I'm okay with the way it stands. I mean, I understand, they wanted 4 stories, they wanted underground, and it just not gonna work. So I get it,
Scott?
Nothing much to add. I pretty much echo Pat and Steve's comments. I'm comfortable with it.
My comment would be to the land to the north has a retaining wall and is also taller than just one, which makes it look taller than 1 story. I mean, we're adding 10 feet. This is not unprecedented in the city. We've done it several times, once for the city building, actually. And then the bituminous plant down towards Comstock Park, we gave variances. So I'm okay with it. It's adding 10 feet. I don't think it'll be too drastic. Any other comments or questions?
Didn't we also grant a variance for Fine and Zylstra right down the street too, to increase their height a little bit?
Oh, I don't remember that one, but.
That was only like a couple of years ago. I thought
Oh,
we
the
did.
back building, yeah.
Yeah, I thought we did,
Yeah, we put up a taller back building there.
yeah. So, and like you said, it's so.
Any other comments? Otherwise, I'll entertain a motion.
I can make a motion for case 22-039 to approve the final area site plan amendment for the U-Haul interior access self-storage building within the Avistar Park CPUD to grant the additional PUD benefit allowing for a 4-story building with a height limitation of 52 feet with the materials and application date received of 12/21/22, subject to the following conditions and based on the findings of fact noted below. I don't believe we are instituting any additional conditions to the final area site plan approval. And in terms of findings of fact per section 94-213 stated in the affirmative and based on the content of the final area site plan amendment for a 4-story building with a height limit of 52 feet, the U-Haul interior access self-storage building CPUD as illustrated and described by the original final area site plan and this amendment continues to meet the standards contained in sections 94-185 and 94-217 of the Walker Zoning Code and continues to meet applicable standards for review, and the final area site plan as amended herein remains in substantial compliance with the previously approved Avistar Park PASP and U-Haul FASP, consisting of the maps and accompanying written materials required under section 94-213 of the Walker Zoning Code.
Okay, we have a motion. Is there support? Motion by Steve, supported by Joe. Questions or comments? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you very much.
Well, that brings us to the end of the agenda. Paula, any updates on, I know the next meeting is early February and it's Greenridge, so.
Yeah, on the February 1st agenda, we will also have just one item. I believe the meeting will run a little differently as it's for the Green Ridge, River Ridge, I believe is the name of the development. They'll be back. We have all their materials and the neighbors have already started calling, so I anticipate a full room. I believe we have 2 items on the 2nd. The deadline was today, so for the 2nd February meeting, we've got a precise plat amendment. Was that, no, it's, yes.
Sounds right.
Yep, for English Hills, and the other one is an addition at the West Pharma building, in, what is that, the name of that park?
Wilson Commerce Park.
North Wilson Commerce Park. I didn't know the name of that one. So those are the things that'll be coming in the next month.
Yeah, the Green Ridge one is the one in the hilly stuff behind,
On Center Drive.
yeah, on Center Drive, and the neighbors were very concerned, and they're already,
Well organized.
I've already been contacted. I don't know why me, should be you.
What's that?
It should be you that are contacting the neighbors, not me. You're the chairman.
Well, can I chime in on that one too? Because you're gonna start seeing some construction equipment showing up out there. And as ambassadors to the city, we need to be careful that we explain, if people ask, that the equipment that's showing up is to rebuild the Kingsbury pump station, which is the sanitary pump station right there, and a force main that runs across the old driving range. So the neighbors are liable to get concerned and worked up, and it's important for us, and we're gonna try to reach out through social media and get comments to all the commissioners and stuff. But this just happened today, that we were given a schedule, and they're gonna start moving equipment tomorrow, so.
Scott, if you can send me that note by email so I can pass it along to a few people
Gotcha.
who will definitely need it.
Yeah, that would be
I
nice.
I have half a message actually on my screen when I looked and saw it was 6:26, and I raced in here, so.
Yeah, this should be a fun one. I don't have any idea how that's gonna go, but anyway. Anything else? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.